Dr. Joel, how are you doing today?
I am doing just fine. I'm actually a research doctor, a PhD doctor. So I'm a medical scientist, a basic medical scientist. Just to be specific about what kind of doctor I am, which
Listen, it all,
doctor I
it, it
am.
all work. It all works for me. I will listen to everything you say because I'm not one. So
Okay.
I will listen to everything you say. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Introduce yourself to my viewers, my listeners, everybody
Well,
on
I'm a
social media.
lifelong wanted to be a scientist since I was about 10 years old. And I got my degree in biology from Yale in 1971 and NYU PhD in 1981. And that's a very long time ago, when medicine was more like medicine and science was more like science. Now, of course, it's up for grabs what science is. A lot of it is just bureaucratic nonsense. But this is not, it's not just about the data. Real science is more than anything else about asking the right questions and then following up. And I ended up making a breakthrough discovery, believe it or not, kind of like I'm the dog that caught the car. I always wanted to learn the secrets about cancer and heart disease and diabetes and all of that stuff. And guess what? I found it. Everybody knows now that all of these diseases, most of what makes people sick and die these days, are caused by chronic inflammation, which is a function of the immune system. But nobody knows why. And the reason why is basically that they don't understand inflammation like they think they do. They think inflammation is a natural response to infection or injury. No, only to infection. So really, when you get that bump on the head, or you get that sprained ankle, or you get that injury that's not an infection, just an injury, and it gets all inflamed, what do you have to do? You got to put ice on it. Why? To stop your body from doing inflammation. Well, why is your body doing exactly the wrong thing in the first place? Good question, right? It
Right.
is because it's not properly nourished. There's one key ingredient, one nutrient, which is actually an amino acid, the simplest of all the amino acids, called glycine. And glycine is one of the building blocks of protein, but it also has another role, which is very important. It serves as like a trigger lock for the immune system, because when you get an infection and it's some kind of microbe that your body's never seen before, it's got to throw basically a non-specific reaction at it before, because it takes weeks to make specific antibodies after being exposed to the disease or to a vaccine. So it throws this non-specific reaction, and it's a graded thing. It starts like it's between pistols and nuclear weapons. There's a whole range of things that happen in inflammation, but it's relatively non-specific. So if it's triggered by something that's not an infection, then what is it doing? It's just causing harm to normal tissues. And so this is what happens just in everyday stresses and strains and micro injuries and major injuries, and even natural functions that require cells to grow and then die off. That kind of situation usually provokes inflammation because people are deficient in this amino acid. They're glycine deficient. And it's worse now than it used to be. There's more Gen X and Gen Y and Gen Z people are getting cancers at higher rates than baby boomers, my generation. There's, diabetes is rampant, and arthritis and all these things. You see these expensive injectable drugs advertised for. They're all rampaging. So why should glycine deficiency be worse than ever? First of all, glycine is deficient because it was always believed to be, and is still mostly by most in the field, believed to be non-essential. That is, your body can make glycine from simpler ingredients. So they think you don't need it. Well, it doesn't make enough. So the body needs to take in about 10 grams a day of glycine, and dietary input is usually about 2 or 3. So my product, Sweetamine, which I'll get to in a couple of minutes, it gives you the other 8 grams, so that you really get the amount that a healthy body needs to regulate the immune system and keep it from doing inflammation. It's rather like the cells of the immune system. They're called macrophages, and there are macrophages in every organ and tissue of the body, sort of like a resident defense force, a resident army, or resident police force, the first responders.
I like that.
So if there's an accident
as a first responder myself, yeah, let's do it. I'm
okay. If there's an accident on a freeway, who comes around? The cops, right? The first responders. They come around and they call the ambulances and the tow trucks, and they get out and they redirect traffic, and they take the accident reports, and they get everything all cleaned up and free flowing again. They get back in their cars. They get back to their base. And guess what? They're armed all the time. They got loaded pistols in their holsters, but they never use them. But imagine if every time there was an accident on the freeway, the cops came by and started shooting up the place. Well, actually, that's kind of what is actually going on in just about everybody's body on a daily basis because they're deficient in glycine. Now, why is it worse than ever?
Vivid picture.
Yeah, yes. Well, you know, as someone who's involved in that, you know, to have that go on all the time for no reason, it's pretty scary. So, but that is what's going on. And that's why you have people are suffering from chronic diseases. By the time they're 40, they're already, you know, crippled up with arthritis and all kinds of other things that they need they think they need these expensive drugs for. So,
so Doc, let me ask you. So your item, Sweetamine.
Yes.
How is it? And there it goes right there. There it goes right there. I've actually been using it. I've actually been putting it in my coffee in the morning. So I'm a big fan. How does it help us to get to get all the nutrients you described?
Right. This is one of the nutrients that most people don't get enough of. Now, the reason why people are more glycine deficient than ever has to do with the biochemistry of glycine. So and with other amino acids. I got started because I was studying another amino acid called methionine, which is an essential amino acid. And lots of people will always study that because if it's essential, well, you know, if the body's short of it, you're going to get all kinds of diseases and problems and so on. Actually, it's very hard to run short of methionine because your body has many ways to recycle it. In fact, after you've had that cheeseburger, because it's the muscle meats, which are very high in methionine and very low in glycine. After you eat that cheeseburger, your liver is actually spending the next hour getting rid of most of that glycine because you don't need it. You need it, but you need very little. So nowadays, of course, we are eating more meat, fish, and poultry than ever before, right? You have your bacon and eggs for breakfast and your tuna fish sandwich for lunch and your chicken and steak dinner. So, you know, 7 days a week, you know, in most of the world, for most of human history, it's beans and rice, beans and rice, beans and rice until the neighbor's goat dies and everybody has a feast, and that's all the meat you get. That's right. So meat is you know, a real luxury item, a luxury kind of food in most of the world for most of human history. But the trouble with the biochemistry is, in order to get rid of that excess methionine that you have with all that muscle meat, for every molecule of methionine, you need to spend 2 molecules of glycine to get rid of it. So that even though meat eaters, or omnivores, people like me anyway, who eat just about everything, you eat more amino acids of all of the amino acids than vegans do, for example, who have a low protein diet. But if you look at the blood of vegans, they have more glycine in them than the blood of meat eaters because of all of the glycine that is stripped away, that's wasted, that needs to be used in order to get rid of that excess methionine. So we're eating more muscle meats, but we're unlike our forebears. When we eat the muscle meats, we tend to throw the bones in the trash instead of the soup. So the people who have bone broth is a very good way to get the glycine, a very good natural way to get the glycine, but you need about a quart a day of bone broth with the typical American diet in order to get the kind of glycine that you would get just from one serving of Sweetamine.
So, Doc,
Sweetamine is the free amino acid form. It's not part of the protein molecule, and that's why it's sweet. It's naturally sweet, and so it's a sweetener, but it's really more of a supplement. It's a nutrient disguised as a sweetener. I formulated it as a sweetener because with a little bit of erythritol, another natural sweetener, and a little bit of taurine, which is another very beneficial amino acid, it tastes pretty much like sugar, as you know. It's got a pleasant taste. It doesn't taste like an artificial sweetener. And I formulated that way because you need about 8 or 10 grams a day. That's 8,000 milligrams, right? I mean, vitamins, drugs or vitamins that you need micrograms or milligrams of is one thing. That's what you can take in a tablet or a capsule. But something like this is a bulk nutrient. You don't need milligrams or micrograms. You need grams. So you'd need to take about 16 large tablets or large capsules a day in order to get the kind of the level of glycine that you get with serving of sweetamine. So that's why I formulated it that way. And I've been selling it actually that way for about 11 years now. And
11 years.
And so I'm just using whatever means I can to help spread the word. And also, I really want people to try it. So like an introductory packet, an introductory starter kit, if you will, we call it a 12-day challenge, has 12 packets. So that's enough for 12 days. Actually, since it does not fight inflammation, right? Other things claim to fight inflammation, because they neutralize some of the products of inflammation. This does not fight inflammation. It just turns it off. It's just like a trigger lock on the first responder's gun. It just turns it off. It's literally a switch on the surface of the cell that is not triggered because the level of glycine is high enough to keep it from being inappropriately triggered. If you get an infection and you need to have inflammation, it still works fine. It's not a drug. It doesn't impair normal function. It normalizes the function. So
Doc, let me ask you this before I let you go. Where can we find sweetamine? Like
you find it at sweetamine.com. It's just sold online. And it's, so that's, well, you could spell it, I guess, for you already, right? Sweetamine.
Sweetamine.
And you got to
SWEETAM.
Sweet. AMINE.
AMINE.com.
Sweetamine.
All right. Doc, thank you so much for coming on. Thank you so much for all the information.
Oh, but also just make sure that they know that it's risk-free. And your listeners, if they enter the promo code Zeek, right? If Zeek. They enter the promo code Zeek, they'll get $5 off their first purchase. So instead of $19.95, they would get their introductory 12-pack for only $14.95. And if they don't like it, just say so. You get your money back. No, it's all risk-free. And as you say, it tastes good and it works. So
listen, I got my box. I've been trying it. I take it before I go to the gym, and I actually have been feeling better. So thank you, Doc, for everything.
Great. Okay. You're quite welcome. Have a great evening. Right.
Doc, thank you so much for coming on.